I'm Dale Magnusson, Micah's dad, and this is my wife, Sherrie.
I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned and that I've come to grips with is that even though bad circumstances came into our family, that God's character did not change when our circumstances did. And God is loving, He's good, He's fair, He's just. He's a compassionate God, but our circumstances didn't seem loving and fair and compassionate. But through this opportunity, we've been able to see past our circumstances, right into the face of God. And He has so been the merciful, gracious, awesome God.
One sentence to sum up everything about this situation in terms of like who God is just that God is sovereign, I think, and He's someone that not only do we fall back on in times of need, but just that He's always there for us. And I think I've had to learn not to come to God when I'm very needy, and I still do, and I don't think that's necessarily bad, but just that God always desires that closeness that sometimes only comes when we are in desperate times. But God is sovereign, and that's something that's something that I can place my faith in and my trust. And there's no other force, in the universe that can heal Micah besides God Himself.
It causes you really to ask some deep questions about the nature and character of God. And I know there's a passage in Genesis where Abraham approaches the Lord in regards to something God is going to do, and basically Abraham asked God this question. He says, "Shall not the judge of all the earth do what's right?" And he kind of throws that back at God. And the answer, of course, is yeah, He will. God will do what's right. And so I don't know if it's revealed so much about God, but it's made me stop and contemplate about who God is and to wrestle with some of those questions. Will God do what's right? And I think each person that goes through trial, they wrestle with that and they have to come to their own conclusion. Either He will or He won't. And from what I see about God is that, yeah, He will. It may look different, it may be slower, but He will do what's right.
For those of us who are suffering, I think one thing we need to do is not be afraid of the pain and to go deep in your soul with the pain that God's asked you to bear. And Jesus did that on the cross for us. He didn't escape any pain. And God shows up in a marvelous way in the deepest part of our pain. And so not to be afraid of that, that He's asked you to bear. And the other piece of advice I would have is going through trials is sort of like going to the gym. And when we go to the gym, we make our muscles do things that they don't want to do, and they resist us. But the best thing we can do for our muscles is to actually stretch them and put them in different situations and positions that they normally wouldn't want to be in. And the exercise of faith, I think, is the same way, where God puts us in these positions that we don't want to be in, but He's really called us to exercise out what we believe about God. And that's an ongoing daily moment by moment process for us. And sometimes we don't feel like exercising, and we just don't want to exercise, and our muscles look the same as they did yesterday, so why do it? And we would like to give up. But just that we need to not give up in whatever aspect of suffering he's called us to.
I think something that I would say to people who are going through trials and struggles would be this, is to try to figure out what God wants you to do. What part is yours and what part is God's? Early on with Micah, it was probably about the 30th day or so of this event when he was still in his coma. I was driving home and I realized I cannot heal Micah. I don't have that within my power. And I also realized that God wasn't asking me to heal him. But there were certain things that God was asking me to do. And that was to fight for him each day. And so that is what I feel is my task. And some days I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I do seek each day to try to fight for him. And then I don't feel like I'm taking on God's responsibilities, and I'm not passing on to God what he desires for me.
And one of the things we ask ourselves every night is, did we win today? And not only with Micah, but with our other kids, in our marriage, in every aspect of this is, yeah, like Dale said, we want to fight and we want to win each day. There's this whole aspect of surrender. And I remember on day 3 of the hospital, I remember where I was at, where I was standing in Sparrow Hospital, when I just had to completely surrender to what God had for us. And for us, there were 3 options: that God was going to take Micah's life, or that he was going to be long-term in a vegetative state all of his life, or thirdly, that he was going to raise him up and heal him and get him back to Moody Bible College. And I just asked God, I told him, whatever one you want me to believe, I will, but I'd really like to know which one I'm supposed to trust you for. And we feel strongly that God still desires that we trust him, that Mike is going to be restored and go into Moody with a Nike backpack on. That's the picture I have in my mind. This other thing is, we would really like to thank, I mean, God has just touched our hearts and Micah's heart by the generosity and the concern of, you know, Trinity Church and our community, New Hope Church. The chair that Micah's sitting in was purchased by Trinity, and we do want to inadequately say thank you for everything that people have done and are doing, and especially just praying and believing with us for Micah's recovery.